Party's not a party's a man who fights crime, and we're gonna watch him fight for a minute at a time with John and Niall and a guest who doesn't rhyme. It's Bat Minute!
Attention, citizens of Fair Gotham, and welcome once again to Bat Minute and Robin, the show that delivers 3 days a week. I am one of your hosts, John Parker.
And it's a podcast with a co-host. Wow! It's me, Niall McGowan.
Most unorthodox. And we are joined once again by our very, very special guests. First up, we have Father David Mowry.
An enticing podcast, but at what cost?
It's cost us a lot over the years, let me tell you.
Because all the listeners do eventually get a letter saying, like, yeah, you now owe $8,000 in...
Yeah, that's our whole financial approach, is we bill you at the end of the show. Once we're done, you know.
It's either that or we take your ears. That's it.
Yeah, it's up to you. We are also joined, once again, by Sean German.
Hello everybody.
Hey. And, of course, let's not forget, Brian German. Oh, my God.
Hello.
Hey.
How's everybody doing?
Pretty good. You know, it's a roller coaster of a week. There's some of the best stuff in the movie and some of the worst stuff in the movie. And I get the sense Niall is going to take a bit of a dip here.
Well, that's the thing. I do. I love this. I actually love this whole scene. But there's a clanger in this minute that's really like, oh, my God. But
no, this is all. If this is the worst, then this must be a pretty good movie. It's all good.
Well, I think it is a pretty good movie. I don't care what the critics and the fans say. You're all wrong. Everyone in the world is wrong. I'm right on this one issue, on this one specific issue. But this is minute 71, and the minute starts with a proposal. And it ends with some heavy drainage.
Yeah. It's So should now we actually have them as a duo. Should note that the reason that Poison Ivy and Mr. Freeze are in this movie is because Joel Schumacher went to his nephew and was like, "Who's your favorite Batman villain?" And he said, like, "Oh, he instantly said Mr. Freeze and Poison Ivy." I imagine about like 8 villains in, he got to Mr. Freeze and Poison Ivy.
You never know. Oh, the Joker. No, they already did a movie with that one. Oh, the Two-Face. No, they already did a movie with that one too. Oh, the Riddler. No, kid. What is like your 6th favorite Batman villain? That's where we're at
Batman
right now.
Villains do you remember? Like what ones come to mind?
The Condiment King.
Oh, and then after an hour.
Condiment King, yes.
You know what, though? I don't actually think that's a bad approach for a movie like this. I actually think maybe some of Star Wars should take that approach.
Really, they should just get in their favorite Batman villains and
their favorite Batman villains in Star Wars.
They should have Mr. Freeze in episode 10.
I mean, I wouldn't complain. But, like, you know, I will never say Star Wars is a kid's movie, because I think it's not. It's a movie that appeals to kids. That's different. But why not, you know, approach that part of the audience and be like, what do you enjoy? They have a different perspective and insight that we, as adults, don't consider, don't think about. And it might reveal gold.
Yeah.
Kids are smarter than we give them credit for.
It just reminds me of that Simpsons, though, where Kent Brockman's daughter comes in and she's like, "Oh, my new doll's super cool." And she's like, "Oh, I can't just, you should do a story about this." And he's like, "I'm not going to do that." And she's like, "Oh, Daddy, that's boring. Do a story about the dolly." And he's like, "Well, you were right about the Berlin Wall."
That's one of the best bits in the whole Simpsons. But, yeah, we are. I mean, as you've hinted at, you know, we're back as Ivy proposes a pairing between the two. And I thought Freeze's reaction to this is ridiculous. The way he's like, like it's absurdly acted. Like it is a kid's TV show. It's the overacting from Arnie which sometimes works, but I think his doesn't. No, it's too much. It's ridiculous.
I actually weirdly didn't mind it. I thought that was like, it kind of, there's a real change towards, in Freeze's actions towards Ivy from this point onward, because he was all, passive aggressive, like, oh, look at you, plant girl, and all that early, kind of mocking her a little bit. And then now that this comes out, he's just like, oh, okay. And then he suddenly turns into like little, like, oh, you always go a size smaller later, as if they're really,
that's good.
Yeah, they're really affable buddies from this minute onwards.
Well, to jump ahead slightly though, that's my problem with Freeze in this film, right? I love him, he's great, but he's too flirty. Because he says to her, she says, I've come to set you free, which is one of the best deliveries in the entire movie. But Freeze says, an enticing offer. And he says it in a way that's kind of sexual. So is this guy missing his wife or not? He always sounds like he wants to sleep with Ivy. Or let's defend it. Is he just speaking to her on her level, the way she communicates?
I think it's that. I think he's just like, he kind of gets her deal. Like, she's displayed her powers and the fact that she's like, oh yeah, seductress. So I think he's just like, he is a scientist after all. He's quite intelligent, so he might be able to go like, I've assessed the situation pretty quickly here.
Yeah, one scientist to another, that type of situation.
This is how scientists speak, yeah.
This is perfectly normal in the lab. Yeah.
Someone comes to you with a dissertation proposal, and you're like, oh, it's
enticing offer. No,
but what does the lady want in return?
That is the conflict in the movie. I think is like they can't decide what Freeze is, what he does, what his motivation is. Is he trying to resurrect his wife, or is he a ridiculous, over-the-top, silly, flirty villain?
I think it's almost like what they're getting to with, if we were to take what they've given us in text in the movie, it's almost as if like all this guy knows is like, oh yeah, every woman just flirts with me constantly, because we've only seen him interact with misbehaving, like Vivica A. Fox earlier in the movie, and that was a constant like, oh Freezy, I'm feeling hot, and I find that unlikely. It was all little flirty backs and forth between them as well, even though he did do his...
but at least his responses there were kind of
dismissive,
negative.
Yeah, he was trying to get rid of her and stuff. But I think maybe again here it could be that he's trying not to show his cards, because he's like, well, there is an out here. I won't say no to her if she is flirting with me. I won't say no, offhand, because it's like, well,
I can use that.
Yeah. I think they're both.
Ivy has already proven herself to be useful. She has seduced and then subsequently killed these two guards. So at least she has proven that she has capability to be useful. And she is also very clearly in complete control of the situation. She is not worried about being inside this jail cell and not worried about getting out eventually.
Yeah. And like, I suppose he probably thinks, well, I can play her. I can manipulate that. I can get what I want out of it.
Yeah, if there was a different characterization for Freeze in this movie, I would buy that. And maybe I'm just biased to the animated series, but I find that to be just the best depiction of Victor Freeze, hands down.
Oh, yeah.
Where
100% agree.
Cold in both personality and in terms of villain theming, where he is logical, he is ruthless, he is very focused, he is emotionless. And it is only that love for his wife where we see the little bit of humanity that's still in him, which makes him a compelling villain. In this, it's Arnold Schwarzenegger who's painted blue. There's not a consistent characterization that's here.
Yeah, like Arnie painted blue, great, wonderful, I love it. But is it a Victor Freeze?
But what I love between the two of them in this moment, though, is that, like, yeah, he could be, like, trying to size her up and say, like, well, maybe I can work this to my advantage and manipulate this scenario. And yet when she says, like, I've come to set you free, it's very, very loaded, because all we know that Ivy does is, like, she manipulates people and she uses them. So her saying, I'm setting you free, is like, you're now getting tangled in my web. You're going to be indebted to me, and I'm going to manipulate you for my own purposes, which she blatantly stated she was going to do, like a couple of minutes ago to Bane, where she's like, oh yeah, I can use this guy in some way.
Yeah, you mentioned her hair being reminiscent of devil horns. You never make a deal with the devil. The devil always gets the better of that.
If only the devil had a giant plant that would randomly eat it at some point.
That's kind of true in the film, though, isn't it, as well? Because really, she's the villain.
Yeah.
If we're taking everything at face value, Freeze does just want to save his wife and stuff. And she professes to want to save the planet, but her entire approach to save the planet is very Thanos, of like, let's just kill all the people.
Yeah.
Yeah, she and Thanos had the same ecology professor in college.
But even like she's even worse though, because like Thanos is like, well, half of people. She's like everybody.
Yeah, not everyone.
Everybody except me and this one dude, and presumably Bane. But even I don't think she even specifies Bane. It could be like, I don't even care what happens to him after we're done.
Yeah, Bane's a useful tool to her, and I don't think Bane cares even. Like, once you're done with me, throw me in the trash.
Yeah. Although speaking of Bane, we do cut to an episode of Supermarket Sweep here with the Bane tearing through the Arkham corridors.
Did you have that in America? You did, didn't you?
Yes.
Yeah, I thought so. I don't know where it originated, but it was a big show when I was young. Whenever you were off school sick, that was what you watched in the morning.
His entire audience was like retirees, the unemployable, and excited school kids who were off sick and just happy to be watching any television.
Yeah. And I tell you what, though, it was a great show, I think. I genuinely thought it was a fascinating concept for a game show.
Oh. I did actually see recently that it's on in the U.S. currently, and it's hosted by Leslie Jones.
What?
And I was like, what? Ghostbusters, SNL Leslie Jones. I was like, yeah, apparently.
Oh, okay. That's pretty cool. That's an upgrade. See, over here, it was hosted by a guy, Dale Winton, who all he did was host game shows. That's it. That's his whole gimmick. But he was one of the first gay men I ever saw on TV.
Yes, yeah. He's very, very flamboyantly so, yeah. And
now we're saying that. Is he gay? I don't even know.
Oh, that's the thing. I probably should have double checked. It might be one of those things. Like, no,
he's probably not. But he's a very camp kind of guy, and it was it was an introduction to that kind of world.
It's actually also everyone always forgets Dale Winton died like a couple years ago, and every time you mention,
I forgot.
Yeah, we mention to people, they're like, "What do you mean he's dead?" And it's like, "No, he's died like in 2018." Like, what? But it's like, yeah, because he was like one of the biggest faces on British TV, and yeah, he's gone, and everyone just kind of forgets that he's not around anymore. It's very weird.
Yeah, I had no clue. That's upsetting. He what else did he host? He had a bunch of game shows.
Oh, they did like the National Lottery on the BBC and stuff for like a long time.
No, but didn't he do that one where it's like hang on, I'm opening his wiki.
We don't have the time to go through the ups and downs and the various wheelings and dealings of Dale Winton.
No, there's too much. But he did have a game show here called Pets Win Prizes, which is fantastic. Anything involving pets is automatically my favorite thing.
Well, if we're evoking the Supermarket Sweep, obviously Bane is doing a bad job competing in it because he's filled his cart with just one thing.
Yeah.
That is not going to add up to a whole lot at the end. Although, I mean, it's hard to put a price on Victor Freeze's armor.
That's a good point. Will that be worth more than filling it with lots of cheap things? Or should you fill it with one expensive item?
I have to say, too, Bane could be always kind of, because of the way he's presented, he does seem like he's like a mindless beast. Yet he clearly has to have some intelligence because he did drive Ivy around Gotham, and he successfully went and got the Freeze suit. Well,
this version of Bane is even more than normal based on Frankenstein's monster, which is the same gimmick, isn't it? In the books, at least, in the book. He looks like a mindless monster, but he's actually very learned and intelligent. But unfortunately, that doesn't often come across in the films. They usually just make him a killer. And wait, no, didn't that one movie they did? He was a bit smarter. The De
Niro one.
The De Niro one, yeah.
Yeah, the Kenneth Branagh's Mary Shelley's Frankenstein.
Which I quite liked. I know it gets slated by the press and stuff, but I thought it was a slightly more faithful take in some ways.
Well, but I have a theory to posit about Bane, though, and it links back to what I put a pin in the previous minute. Because we were talking, of course, about in the storage locker, there was a little doll And we're, what is it? Is it Scarface? It probably should have been Scarface. That would have made more sense. Is it a Raggedy Ann? I think if you look at it, it's a teddy bear. And it brought to mind for me, because Bane is in that minute, or within that exact couple of seconds, it may have been a reference to Bane's teddy bear, which is a thing from the comics. A lot of people forget Bane has a thing for teddy bears. It's dates back to when he was first introduced and when he was a child growing up in the prison in Pinadura. He had a little teddy bear that he carried around everywhere because, obviously little kid surrounded by massive, horrible criminals everywhere and stuff. He's going to need some comforting. And it turns out, yeah, at one point he ends up, it's revealed that he has a knife hidden inside the teddy bear. And at one point then when he has that weird, well, we talked about a couple of weeks ago when Bane was first introduced, that in the comics, the reason he hates Batman is because he had perfected himself within the prison to be like this paragon of humanity, like the most intelligent and the most fit, like an Ozymandias type almost. Ooh. And the one thing, he had a vision then when he fell off a ledge. Actually, he had the vision when he was a child, I should say. And the vision told him, you are going to become the perfect human being, like the ultimate warrior and whatnot. The only thing holding you back is fear. And then the fear was, presented as a giant bat, and that's why he's like, I must break the bat and all this business.
Ooh, I like that.
Yeah, but within that vision, when he falls off the ledge, the teddy bear gets up and walks away, and he follows it to this vision of his future self and stuff. And the little teddy bear is called Osido. And later on then, when Bane breaks out of the prison, he kills the warden, and then he gives him Osido to throw in the sea, and it's supposed to be like a symbol of the fact he's throwing away his childhood innocence and whatnot to become a fully fledged supervillain and stuff. But the fact then that they have this little teddy bear in the storage room, I was like, oh, maybe it's a nod to Osido, because a lot of Bane's backstory in this is weirdly like, yeah, that is Bane's story. So, but then because of that, I was like, well, why would Osido be in Arkham Asylum? And then if you look, Bane seems to know where he's going in this place. Like, he's tearing around those corridors like, yep, I know exactly where to go. And when he was driving around Gotham, he was like, yep, I know these streets. I know which side of the road to drive on.
Yeah.
I'm thinking what actually has happened is that Bane was a previous inmate of Arkham Asylum. And that is his teddy bear. And the reason he came back, him and Ivy went to Gotham, he's like, oh, I know Gotham. I grew up there. Like, yeah, I know Gotham like the back of my hand.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, that's my headcanon.
Yeah.
That's great. I'm on board. Because at least it's a fantastic backstory for him that you've just listed. So
it explains why he knows that the guards at Arkham are such pushovers. They'll just kind of limply fling themselves in his path and literally flop over.
They bounce off him. It's so hilarious. It reminds me of like because I'm a big geek. I love my wrestling. Whenever wrestling referees try and break up a fight. And it's the most ineffectual, pointless nonsense you've ever seen. Just like, oh, no, and they just get thrown around.
Yeah. When we see one of the guards gets pushed over, and then he has to put his hat on before he can get up. Like,
that's very important. You haven't
uniform
got your
regulations.
guard
The
powers.
warden is very specific about that.
That's why Jesse Ventura had to have his hair done in that little thing at the back. It's like, no, the cap's on, no hair visible. That's the rules.
Hey, you know what? These kind of places have stupid rules like that. Yet again, at my work, you have to make sure that your sleeves are, no lower than your elbows in case you have to wash your hands. Because even if you're not handling the medication, it's like, well, you might handle the medication. But I'm not currently. For the next 3 months, I'm doing something else. Yeah, but you might.
You might.
And I just wanted to mention the design of the movie. We talked about it a little bit. I mean, I think Freeze looks good. Poison Ivy looks good. The colors pop. Even Bane. Bane is okay. I don't love the look, but at least it has character. The buildings, the brick, that type of thing.
Yeah, there's a definite look and feel to Arkham. That's really good. But it's kind of, what this makes me think of is. And it kind of goes back to a quote earlier in the show. You're talking about a quote from Elle Macpherson, talking about this movie and calling back to the the '60s Adam West show, which I'm sure is not her words at all. I mean, it comes off as something from a publicist. But if you think about it, like that show was like that show always happened during the day. It was very bright, and if you kind of just take that same aesthetic, but you just make it at night and you just turn the lights down, and then you get a lot that kind of gets you close to what this film turns out to be. The design here. It's very similar. It's just kind of a nighttime version of that.
I felt a little bad, though, because a second ago, Brian, we left you hanging there because you're saying nice things about the movie, and we're so used to there being like a but after people say nice things about it. We were really expecting you to come in with a, no, but then.
Right. No,
Yeah, I think we're the only people who do like praise the movie. So yeah, that was a surprise. That was great. The whole movie looks fantastic.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. When Ivy says here, let's cool it for now. I've got someone I want you to meet. She saunters to the doorway, somehow sensing Bane has arrived. I don't know how. And lets him in.
That's bizarre. Is like, how does she know he was going to be there? Also, he's charging up that corridor, and you see those guards.
They synchronized their watches. She knew to the second when Bane would be arriving. Because really, what's going to stand in Bane's way? Steel reinforced walls? Hardly.
Yeah. Well, what I love that
that might come into play later.
What? What do you mean?
Yeah. Well, I do love that she's picked up on like the ice puns are going to be, his thing. She's like, cool it for now.
I'm going to join in.
Yeah.
I do that with people, especially as an English person podcasting. I have to join in with Americans, and it's like I'm going to have to speak American now. So I get it.
John's like, whenever I meet someone who has a particular bit, I like to once I notice that they are, freeze based, I'll make a couple of ice puns.
I like it helps them feel at ease. I join in with the bit.
Yeah,
exactly.
I will say though, we should note because I forgot to mention actually in the last minute because we do have Bane charging towards that door. Somehow she hears him coming, or whatever. She knows he's going to be there exactly.
She senses him.
If you go back to the previous minute, and at around 56 seconds, Ivy's walking near the door, and through the glass, blatantly standing right there, is Bane. Like there's just a continuity error or whatever, like on set. The actor was just hanging about outside or something. But it's like once you see it, you can't unsee it. Like he's right there already.
He's right there.
It would be fair enough if she opened the door and he was just standing there. I was like, oh yeah, it was because of the continuity in this minute. But it's like, no, he's running down the corridor. Like he's not standing there at any point. So.
Oh dear. Oh no. How dare you point out a flaw now?
I hope someone got fired for that blunder. Let me tell you.
I wonder if there was a version of the script where Bane came with her and Freeze says, "Oh, but I need my suit," and so they send Bane to go get it.
He comes back up with the Riddler's outfits, and he's like, "Oh, not that one.
That is not going to fit me." Now, when she lets him in, you would think that Freeze would actually be annoyed, in my mind at least, at Bane. Like, he's probably thinking, "Oh, you've got another muscle dude? I'm not your big Papa Pump."
My thinking was almost the opposite, as if she was introducing Bane, because she is very proud when she's like, his name.
Like, you two boys will get on.
Yeah, I think it might be like,
yeah,
my seduction didn't work in the earlier scene when it was the pheromone dust designed to eat the man's blood and all that business. So she might, I'll meet you on your level, okay? You're a big muscle bound guy. I too have a big muscle bound guy. You guys can be friends. Like if you're not into
talk
me.
About protein powder and things.
Yeah, he was like, well, here you go. You guys can be the best of buds.
And now I do have here's a logistical question that you guys know. I did hear Schwarzenegger really wasn't on set much. Is he with them in this scene? Because from the back, it feels like it could be anybody. And then obviously they're not in the shots together. I don't think.
That is a good question because he's
double?
very, very into this movie. Like, he loves that he's in this film. But at the end of the day, it's Arnold Schwarzenegger. If he can get away with not being in a scene, he's not going to be in the scene.
Yeah, I heard he really wasn't there much. I think George Clooney said he never actually did a scene with him.
Yeah, I think that's true. Like him and Chris O'Donnell. He was like, I think Chris was like, "Oh, I met Arnie on the press tour. I never met him on the set."
Yeah,
like,
and here
even though we're in scenes together,
it's just Schwarzenegger in all his shots when he's talking. You don't see anybody else. So I just wonder if he was there.
Yeah, I'm bouncing back and forth looking at Schwarzenegger's ears, and I think this is a body double. The ears don't look quite right when you get the quarter profile shot. I think some lucky Schwarzenegger lookalike got to be on set for Bane's big entrance.
Right.
Knowing the way that Arnold does his movies, it's literally any excuse for him to just leave the set and smoke a cigar, basically.
It's also the same thing happened with Jack Nicholson, too, apparently. They're saying if it wasn't a close-up on Jack Nicholson in the first one, it probably wasn't him. It was going to be somebody else in the makeup and stuff.
I get it, but at the same time, come on, just do it. Is it really that much more work? You're already in the makeup and everything.
I think a lot of it might be the boredom of being, because I think they always say that your first day on a film set's like the most magical thing, and then the second day is the most boring day of your life, because it's all like, we did a shot, okay, now we have to set up everything again and take a break, and then so Arnie could be like, I'll have to literally hang about for 45 minutes in between setups and stuff.
Especially with this shot, because they have Bane running while the door is opening, and it looks like that door is being physically manipulated, because you can see it after it comes back down. It takes a while to settle back into the right place. It hovers a little bit up and down, so there is some grip in the back with a rope and is trying to manipulate this door correctly. So there'll be a lot of timing and setup, and I imagine there were a couple takes to get that entrance of Bane just right. Schwarzenegger doesn't have time for that. He has weights to lift.
Yeah, exactly. He's got other things he needs to do. He has to maintain the physique.
That's
I
right.
really like the idea, though, that he, like, even in the last minute when we saw Bane through that door, like, it was actually, Arnie wasn't in that shot either. He was actually, you can see beside Bane, like, puffs of cigar smoke, and Arnie's just out talking to the guy. It's like, John Bon Jovi gave me the cigars, you want one?
Well, after me saying how great the delivery was on I've Come to Set You Free. Right, Niall. I don't know if this is what you've got in your notes, but now we get possibly the worst delivery in the movie.
Is it going to be the same exact line as we're both thinking?
Well, okay. I love it, even though it's awful. Freeze gestures to Bane and says, "A laundry service that delivers." Wow!
That's the one. That is, that is, of all the movies, I think that's the worst line.
I think I delivered it better than Arnold.
I think you did.
Yeah.
No, to me, it's the wow that puts it over the edge.
Yes.
Without the wow, it would be fine. It would okay, that's Mr. Freeze. He makes one-liners, ha ha ha. But the wow is like, nope, too much. Nope.
Yeah. It's that subtle thing. Like, the wow just pushes it too far, doesn't it?
I think it's too. I'm gonna have to. And to be fair, he did say to always blame him in these situations, because Joel Schumacher said, like, if you're gonna blame anyone for Batman and Robin, blame me. We know Arnie can deliver cheesy one-liners. We know that's his entire career as an actor was built on
and it
that.
is hilarious, like the line.
Yeah, and it's so poorly delivered, and it's not even that bad a line. Like, I can imagine it could be delivered well. I'm gonna have to blame Joel Schumacher for just like not knowing, because maybe not even blame him, because I don't really understand why he says what he says, like, in this fashion.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's just a bad line. Like, they could have had something about an ice flow, or that's something about, referring to Bane's size, like, that's the fastest moving glacier I've seen. Like, there are more puns. There's so many puns they leave on the table in this minute as well. And jumping ahead a little bit at the end, when he at the very end of this minute, he talks about his freeze whatever, and it's like running on empty. It's like, well, you could say, oh, my systems are running cold, or the engine's about to freeze up. Like, they're like, people talk about the puns, and it's like, well, no, it's not that there are too many puns. There aren't enough. There should have been more puns.
Well, in the draft script, there's actually a lot of puns they cut.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That should keep Goldsman's mentality. It was like, whenever a character's not saying a pun, all the other characters should be saying, where are the puns?
Yeah, so that's my biggest problem with that. The laundry line is that it just doesn't fit in with the character and the other.
I don't
the
get
other
his
lines.
tone, because he seems like the wow seems sincere. Like, he is Mr. Freeze has suddenly turned into like a dunce out of nowhere. Like, he was all cool, calm scientist guy. And now he says this, and it's almost as if he believes it's the laundry service that delivers. And he's just like, oh, it's amazing.
I'll tell you what, right? Not a bad business model. if you could create a laundry service that kind of operates like Uber, I think you're onto something.
I think we've had several business ideas come out this season, John. And I can't remember what any of them are so far, but if we should do Bane deliveries and like a laundry service that delivers, and we just show up in the mask and like, the arms painted green with the veins and stuff.
Well, would you not pay for someone who comes round, collects your items, washes them, and brings them back? I think that's good. Because normally if you go doing like a laundry thing, like a dry cleaners, you've got to go and get them again.
Yeah. I mean, now you got the taglines in there now. If you can get Arnie to endorse it for you, you're sold.
That could be the ad. Yeah. A laundry service that delivers. Wow. That's great. I'd love that. And the thing that confuses me as well here, right, is what is the setting on this door? Like, how are the guards who arrived to try and break in, how are they locked out? How does this
why are the
That's
controls
why
on
they
the
had-
inside? Why are the...
That's why they had to
Exactly.
have the guards inside the room, because the lock is inside the room, and if they just left Freeze by himself, he could just go over to the door and open it by himself. So can't have that. Got to have some guards in the room with him.
That's wild to me. Like, you could have had the same effect, like the guards being stuck, by having Bane, as he arrives, I don't know, like smash the door mechanism on his way through. Just like, bam, punch it, it locks it. So, you know, a bit like, again, in Star Wars, they shoot the lock, it breaks it. Cool.
That's amazing. I really love that moment of just like, oh, where's the door panel? Oh, I blasted it. It's like,
And you could have done that here, though. Like, Bane smashes it.
yeah.
But no, it's on the inside to create tension. No, you don't need that. It's stupid. It doesn't make sense.
I mean, it would almost make sense of like everything about Arkham Asylum is just a bit backwards and weird and stuff. It's just like, so we do have things. I don't know. Do you guys know a lot about like the actual history of Arkham Asylum and the within the comics canon and all the various weird stuff that's gone on there?
I do not.
I only know
don't
what I
know.
learned through the Arkham Asylum video game.
I think some of it is dealt with in there, but basically it was supposed to have been built in 1921. And it's almost like friggin' like Overlook Hotel levels of like, oh yeah, this place is doomed, basically. Where the original architect ended up killing his entire crew, hacked them to death with an axe, much like, you know, Dick Delbert Grady and whatnot. And then, it was set up by Amadeus Arkham. And whose mother suffered with a mental illness. And a lot of this is it's presented in the book, the Grant Morrison classic, you know, Arkham Asylum, a serious house on serious earth, and the whole bunch of like very intricate, detailed backstory. But it was actually originally Grant Morrison can't claim credit for a lot of it because it was originally came up with in 1985 by Len Wein in an issue of DC's Who's Who, which was just like a little magazine that's like, oh, this is the Riddler. This is his deal. And it'll be like a little one-page thing that'll explain backstories of characters. And yeah, Len Wein came up with a whole thing about Arkham Asylum built by Amadeus Arkham, whose mother was, you know, had a terrible mental illness, ended up in, you know, put in the asylum herself. And then afterwards, he within Arkham Asylum, the book, he ends up killing his mother because she keeps having visions of a giant supernatural bat, much like Bane had a vision of a giant supernatural bat, which is, you know, very short amount of time between these two publications as well when they did that with Bane and established that backstory. So I don't know if there's just something going through the DC offices where they just wanted Batman to be like this, you know, oh, maybe he is supernatural in some crazy manner or something. But yeah, Amadeus Arkham kills his mother to relieve her of this pain, and also he now sees the bat as well. Eventually, then his own family is killed by someone called Marty Mad Dog Hawkins, and Amadeus brings him into Arkham Asylum, where he treats him. In the Len Wein thing, it says like, oh, he actually treated him very well until he suddenly died by accidental electrocution, which seems a bit sus. And then Grant Morrison fixed it to be like, no, Amadeus Arkham used to torture him with electroshock therapy because the dude killed his wife and daughter.
Oh, whoa.
Yeah.
Whoa.
And yeah, eventually then Amadeus ends up going completely crazy himself and is confined to Arkham Asylum personally, where he tries to bind the evil bat spirit to the building by etching a binding spell into the walls with his fingernails. And as Father David, as you alluded to there, in Arkham Asylum, one of the things you have to go around during the game is scanning these weird sigils on the walls.
Yeah.
Where they kind of retell that story, but they add in then a whole thing with Quincy Sharp he believes himself to be the spirit of Amadeus Arkham, and it's a whole bunch of stuff going on in that game. But
let us take every single piece of Batman lore and put it into this game. Like, oh, we still had stuff left over. Well, let's make another game and put all the Batman lore in that game too, which is great. I love it. It creates this excellent hodgepodge of things. But reading those hearing the audio clips in the game. Led me down a very creepy path of Batman's universe that I had never been down before. I just thought, well, Arkham Asylum is just this narratively convenient place to keep all the crazies and they'll have a place where they can then escape from. But to hear that Amadeus was himself off his rocker, that made sense. Like, okay, well now, no wonder the place doesn't make sense and can't actually hold the inmates who are supposed to be there, because the foundation of it is built on a man who didn't come to grips with his own psychosis.
Yeah,
exactly. It is the worst mental health hospital I've ever seen. They do not help anyone.
No. And they're of course, as we see in their staff, they don't train their staff on proper boundaries with the inmates, because Dr. Quinzel just gets totally taken in by the Joker.
Yeah.
It's just very poor training and staff support network at the hospital, saying nothing of how they treat the inmates.
This is why you can't make cuts to healthcare.
Yes, exactly.
Especially in the UK, they're constantly cutting funding to healthcare. You've got to put money into it.
Yeah, see, the money they're spending in the budget for the laundry service should be going into better training for the healthcare professionals.
Exactly.
I mean, then you're pitching like health services to the general public, and they're like, meh. And then you just put down a laundry service that delivers, and throughout the country, you hear everyone instantaneously go, "Wow,
brilliant!" Something else that I love as well is Freeze, when Bane does drop his gear off, he's back in that outfit in record time. But how and why did they resist a suiting up scene for him, commando style?
Or just to reference back the very beginning of this film, where we had all the loving shots of Batman and Robin suiting up. Why could we not? That would have been a great joke to have the same shot with Freeze suiting up here.
Exactly. Yes. But it seems to just gloss over it in 2 seconds. Like, oh, yeah, he's back in the suit. It's like, come on. Arnold is the guy we know from Commando for suiting up, and you're in a movie where people have suited up.
Yeah. You could have had a chance to see some Arnie booty as well. Like you saw O'Donnell's, you saw Val Kilmer's in the last one.
Well, and Arnold's not shy about showing that, Mr. Universe, you've got to get that out.
It's like a big opening scene of Terminator, where he's just like, here it is, everybody. So it's like, bring back the Arnie booty. But not, tragically not.
Arnold doesn't mind talking about his body in this as well, because, of course, Ivy says, as you've hinted at there, Noel, she says, what are you, about a 50, big and tall? Mm-hmm. Now, I mean, initially I was like, a 50-inch waist? Oh my God. I'm a 32, And I thought, well, Arnold, bodybuilders tend to have a slim waist. They're like a triangular shape. And I thought, a 50? So that really shows how wide his shoulders are.
Yeah.
If the waist is 50 and he still looks like a triangle. But I also thought it was hilarious when he's, like, no, I always go a size smaller. Makes me look slimmer.
I remember someone in the listener's cave saying that they had a problem with Arnie's suit, and they're like, oh, it makes him look really chunky, and they even make a joke about it in the movie. But that line is in the script before they even would have had...
Yeah.
And I never would have assumed that was it. I never thought Arnie looks particularly chunky in this movie.
No, I think he looks slim in the film.
Yeah. Well, it's because he's wearing a size smaller, John.
There it is.
It's not a bad tactic, right? Yeah. If done right. Too small, and you can look absurd. Too big, and you look like a clown.
Yeah, I think it goes the opposite way. If you're like spilling over, where obviously you don't fit, it makes you look bigger.
Yeah,
the clothes are too small.
It does, and people with a bigger frame sometimes feel a bit self-conscious and get bigger clothes. And it's like, no, actually, if you went slightly smaller, it would actually suit your figure more. But the way society is, it makes you paranoid about things like this, you know.
Well, even saying that, when he says this, Ivy kind of goes like, and she feels her hips as if she's like sizing herself up, as if she could go a size smaller than the tightest outfit in the universe that she's currently wearing.
Yeah.
Well, she's busy posing for her photo shoot for the cover of Vogue, because she's got her hips at an extreme angle out from her shoulders.
Yeah. I don't think you could be any more like posy than
Very,
what she
very
does throughout this
sultry.
film.
She's doing it for her at this point.
But, you know, this really all ties back into why clothes are supposed to be tailored. Nobody can afford that anymore, of course. But the whole point of clothing is it's all meant to be tailored to the individual. And society's got to a stupid point now where nobody can pay that.
Yeah.
Now we have to buy stupid off-the-rack stuff that doesn't fit anyone.
It's like every time then you go into a different place, its versions of a size are different from the other store. So you're oh, this is my size. Like, nope, not anymore. It's not. It might have been down there, but it's not here.
Like sometimes I can wear a small in a shirt. Sometimes I can wear a large. So how does that make sense?
Yeah. Although I do appreciate. I always like seeing people get on in movies. Like, I always enjoy it when, like, you know, an animosity disappears.
Yeah.
And I do, like, Barney was so cold to Ivy earlier in the movie. But now it's like a little buddy back and forth where he's like, happy to tell her, like, no, I'll go a size smaller. Makes me look slimmer. And pats his stomach and stuff. He's just like, oh, we're good now. Yeah, we're friends.
Yeah, I like that. And also, I think it subverts gender norms. You know, giving the man the line, you know, worrying about not just his weight, but the appearance of his weight. Because normally you would give that to the female character.
Yeah.
So I think that's an interesting little twist where it's like give it to the strong masculine character.
Yeah.
Right.
That's true.
So he's the vain one. Sure.
Yeah.
Which of course he is. He's Mr. Universe. Well, he was.
But yeah, then, so we do get the beginning of Mr. Freeze being concerned about the amount of rocks he's got in his suit. But the minute kind of ends there. Does anyone have any other notes for minute 71?
Well, he's in about 100 pounds of suit, and he's about to jump into the water.
Oh my God, that's a good point. I hadn't thought about that.
Yeah, that's it. Well, I guess. Well, I have no idea if they have any idea what's on the other side of that wall. Like, are they just like, yeah, it's out to the garden, right? Or like, it's going to be something. Like, we can't.
Well, I'm going to bring it up next minute, but they seem surprised, and I'm surprised that they're surprised.
Yeah.
I'm surprised that you're surprised that they're surprised.
Really, Sean? That is surprising.
Well, I'm surprised that you're surprised that I'm surprised that they're surprised.
But I know that two of you guys are kind of pressed for time, so I don't know if you can make the next minute. But yeah, but while we're here, we do always ask the guests, because Batman and Robin is reviled as one of the worst movies ever made, what the worst movie you've ever seen is. So I don't know if Father David or Brian, if you have something to throw down on the docket for that.
Well, I don't know if this question is entirely fair for me, because I watch Mystery Science Theater a lot. And so I am exposed to so many terrible movies. And it's not just that, oh, the lines are really cheesy and the characterization is inconsistent and I don't much care for this particular aesthetic in this movie. No, the movie is incompetently made, where there is a complete disregard for continuity, or there are scenes that should have been edited out entirely that just stretch on for interminable minutes. And the only thing that makes it palatable is having those three goofballs cracking jokes about it the whole time. But that's not quite the same thing as just watching a bad movie. So I think the only one that I've seen without the Mystery Science Theater treatment baked in, so to speak, was the movie Night of the Lepus, which is a movie about...
That's a great movie.
It's a good bad movie, but it is a movie about giant killer bunnies that are rampaging across, I believe it's a Texas ranch, and It's very difficult to make rabbits look intimidating. You can put all the model train houses and fences you want in front of them, but they don't move like killers. They move like little.
Wait, have you not seen
rabbits.
Monty Python and the Holy Grail?
Oh, it's just a little bunny rabbit, isn't it?
That's an intimidating rabbit, let me tell you.
Yes, it is, but that goes to show that in the horror movie they couldn't make the bunny scary, and in the comedy movie they could.
Yeah. That is a genuinely terrifying moment in cinema.
Yes.
Well, but Brian, do you have a?
Yeah, I mean, and this is a throwback. It might have been Xanadu, but we've had a podcast all about it. You could go back and listen. That's not it anymore. Cowboys and Aliens. Has anybody seen that? 2011's classic. No. Oh, it's terrible.
Oh yeah. I've seen that. Yeah.
I just know I remember the intense promise of like it's got Han Solo,
yes,
and James Bond. It's got cowboys and aliens. What could go wrong?
Yeah, I was going to say he's in it.
A lot, apparently.
Yeah, Daniel Craig. He's always good.
Yeah, I mean, I like him, but I don't know that movie. I don't remember much about it, but I remember just hating it.
It's not good. It was not good. I agree.
But to spin things into a more positive note, we always do ask as well if, like some people with Xanadu, and like some people with Batman and Robin, if you guys have a film that you love, that the world regards as being bad.
That's an easy one for me. And I think Sean's going to know what I'm about to say. Hudson Hawk.
Yep.
Again, someone we had on an episode went out recently. Someone was defending Hudson Hawk as well.
Yes.
It's
There's dozens of us.
Dozens. It's hard for me to think of one. I mean, there are movies that I have nostalgia for that I haven't gone back and revisited. For instance, Flight of the Navigator was a kids movie that my brother and I watched on repeat over and over and over again. Now, it also helped that the main character's name was David, so there was a very obvious interest that I took in the film as a result. And it's a kid's adventure movie, and it's not great cinema, but I don't think it's bad per se, but it's certainly not one that I would go back and rewatch for any reason other than nostalgia at this point.
Yeah. Well, on that note, we'll head off into the dark night once again. Today, who should do plugs? Oh, I think it should be Brian. Would you like to plug anything you're working on, any of your shows, or just whatever you like?
Well, you could hear me and Sean on Next Scene Podcast, anywhere you download podcasts, of course. And we got a new season coming out. It's going to be great.
I've seen the list of what's coming up in this new season too, and there's a few ones that have popped right out to me. I'm like, so I'm very excited about this.
Definitely. So check it out, everybody. Just come and check all our stuff out. I'm not going to plug us again on Wednesday. Who cares? And we will be back again on Friday with more exciting Bat-Minute action. See you then, Batmites.
Next time. Pipe down, rub-a-dub. Arnie's Arkham abolition is apparently in trouble, as Ivy's muscle man can't seem to turn a wall to rubble. Despite all their rage, these three are still just some rats in a cage. But can the flash freezing of H2O grant them the means to get up and go? The next episode's in the pipeline, dear dedicated audience. Same Bat Pod, different Bat Minute.
We'll be back.